I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. So if everybody please stand, I'll lead us in our invocation and pledge. We'll bow, we'll have our invocation. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We just thank you for all the ways you bless us, you provide for us, you protect us. And we need you now as much as we have ever needed you before. We just ask that you're the almighty healer to take care of this disease that's spreading, to protect us, to guide us, to be with the folks that are trying to do that, to watch over them, guide them and direct them and give them wisdom and discernment, not just government folks, but medical personnel and others. We just ask you to watch over us, and we thank you for all the ways that you do that, in ways that we don't even know. We just ask that you guide our group tonight and make decisions in the best interest of our district, and we just thank you for guiding us and directing us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We'll do the U.S. pledge first. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor our Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Okay, since we don't have any visitors tonight, at least recognitions, do we have any body signed up to speak? Ms. Hinkleman?
No one.
All righty. I guess you're already up.
Superintendent's report. Well, how do I start to count the ways here? Has been absolutely unprecedented, week, I'll say maybe 2 weeks is a part of it since we started tracking with this. And I'm not going to run you through the disease part of it, what we're seeing, but here, I guess within the middle part of spring break last week, we started regularly getting briefings from the State Department of Ed along with CDC. Would have a teleconference every afternoon. Most of that dealt with medical issue really, but they were giving some guidance to school in that. TEA came online the middle part of last week and began to start giving us some guidance of this. And so, and I guess it was toward the end of last week that all the superintendents in Region 4 and Region 6 met on a teleconference. We had CDC, State Department of Health there, had some representatives from TEA that were part of that. And basically because where we are, we felt like we needed to at least start the concept of a closure. And so we announced that we had a 1 week closure at that juncture. And there were several districts, and I'm not sure who all those were. Houston was one. Opted to go a little longer than that 1 week, but most of us didn't want to go out any farther than 1 week at a time. And we also announced at that point we weren't going to have any extracurricular activities or practices. UIL has since come on board and basically closed all those down through March the 29th. That includes the competitions and the practices. In an unprecedented thing, I mean, UIL actually canceled the state basketball tournament midway through the tournament. I think they pulled kids off the court at one point, Westlake kids. So, so we're down the rest of this week, and we're trying to decide where our next steps are. And so you'll see a letter in front of you here, and that went out at 6 o'clock to our staff and to our administrators. And again, in conjunction with all the Region 4 people, all the Region 6, all the people in Montgomery County, again with the state health people in tow behind us. In this case, a lot of recommendation from Montgomery County in terms of that. And since we have a state of emergency in this county, the county has a lot of leeway in kind of directions as whether or not we close or not. So they're very actively a part of those conversations. We've made the decision that we're going to be closed through April the, is it 10th? 10th? That's the Friday, isn't it? 13th is Monday. So through April the 10th. And so that's a 4-week closure. And it's just, again, sort of unprecedented. We've been down maybe as up to 3 weeks with some of the hurricanes before. I wish I could say that I knew that was a hard, fast date, that we won't have to run past that at any point. I don't know if I can tell us that or not. And I know the latest CDC guidance that we've had has said when we actually have the virus that's actually, it's in the public and it's actually being spread in the community, that their recommendations for school is 8 weeks. And so this is a little bit on the conservative side of that, and hopefully we'll wait and see and assess where we are at that point. I think all of us, when I say that, all of us in the school community, you know, we want to see that at some point we're able to get these kids back as quick as we can. But we're also going to communicate with parents in this letter that it could go on longer than this. And so today, we met with principals and we started unveiling a plan for a task force that's going to be meeting to figure out how we're going to be doing some distance, online, remote learning opportunities with our kids. The one caveat that TEA has for us to continue to receive funding as we would in a normal year without students being here is that we try to do we've got to show somehow that we are providing for the educational benefit of those kids through the remainder of this year. Now, they're not giving us, well, we hope to get some guidance from them a little bit down the road as what that's going to look like. But I think for most districts, we realize this is going to be a monumental task to wheel within a week's time or something and go from, you know, on in-class instruction to something where we've got those kids out of class and trying to do remote learning. It's going to be difficult at best. But we have 3 task force in our elementary and middle grades and our high school grades. We're starting to meet tomorrow with principals and with teams of teachers to figure out what that's going to look like, and that hopefully sometime within the following week is the guidance I've given them. They're going to come back to us with how we can start pushing that out to students and parents sometime next week, so they can have some type of resource to see that there's some way their education is continuing for these kids. And again, it's going to be a huge task. We hope to get some support, obviously, from TEA. There's a lot of private companies that are also stepping up to the table to maybe help us out in some of that, telecommunication companies and whatever. We'll take advantage of those as we move along. But that's sort of the state of where we sit right now. We have basically told all of our hourly employees that the board will treat them as we have in the past. Some of our employees, obviously our bus drivers, we're going to have them standing down. They're not going to be running routes. But we're going to still guarantee them the same hours they've been received before. And by policy, we have the ability to do that. We just have to come in after the fact and approve that as a board that they can be paid for those hours they did not work. I mean, actually perform during an emergency crisis. And so obviously this fits that bill. For those employees who do come in and work, and because we've got some that we're going to consider essential to the people work in this office. We've got some of our custodians, our maintenance people. In the past, when we've had those people come in as incentive, we pay them time and a half for the time that work that they've come in to do that. We do fully expect to be reimbursed for some of this time from either the state or federal government. That's how it's happened in the past. We've been able to do it. So we're going to meticulously track all those hours and any of the other expenses we have to make sure we can get reimbursement when that time comes. And from a number of hurricanes and other times dealing with FEMA, we have a pretty good idea how to stay on top of that. But that's sort of the state of where we are right now. And so we'll get working tomorrow morning on figuring how we can start pushing lessons out to these kids. And our hope is we can get them back sooner than later. But I'm afraid there's a chance we're going to have to prepare for the contingency that we don't have them back this year. We may have seen them for the last time. And I know those of you with seniors and for those kids, I just think that's going to be a heartbreaking situation. But we'll roll with it and go. And obviously you'll need to know from our standpoint, as soon as there's some metrics that point to there's an opportunity to bring them back, we're going to be as aggressive in that as possible. But you gotta know, we're probably going to have the state, and we're going to have the state health department behind, them even giving us some clearance to bring those kids back to say it's safe. And TA recognizes that, and that's one of the things they say they've got a task force working on right now is how do we go ahead and say there's a way that districts can come back, and how do we clear the way to allow that to happen. So.
How about things like graduation? Any idea? No idea. Yeah.
I'm hoping we get to 4 weeks here and we see quite a clearing. You may know more of this than I even do, but I know one of the brighter rays of information I got was that Japan closed down their entire school structure maybe four weeks ago. And I think their total amount of time they stayed down was almost 3 weeks, so they're back up. So there's some good news somewhere in that for us, maybe that maybe this is not as long a duration. But judging from China and maybe even what we're seeing in Europe and how it's moving even there, and what CDC guidance we see on the 8 weeks, it's going to push us right into the end of school. So I'm not willing to write off any of those things yet, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
The food program that we're doing, is that a constantly reevaluated how long that can last, or?
Well, again, it's federally subsidized, so it's a pass-through program through our state Department of Agriculture, and we got approval, or the state did a blanket approval to be able to do that. And so as long as we're down and they're going to allow that money to flow to be able to do that, we're going to continue to feed those kids.
Good.
How we actually go about distributing it, I mean, we'll sort of look from it. We're going to use Magnolia Elementary and Smith right now as the 2 points of distribution. It's just depending upon how many people show up there. I think when they start, they were going to give it every day. I know some districts around us are doing like every other day, and they'll give 2 days worth of meals at a time. And the concern there was to try to minimize how many people showed up to a spot at one time. So we'll just have to look and see what it looks like, how many people are there. And if it's a huge turnout, we may open it up to some more schools so we have less at those particular sites.
But that's not an
don't know.
exhaustive resource, that's an ongoing resource. Good, because with our free and reduced lunch population, that makes my heart
Absolutely.
hurt that those kids can't come
That's
eat.
right.
So at
That's
least we
right.
can get them something.
No, good point. Proud to be able to do that.
So the task force you have, I mean, is it pretty diverse, meaning K to 12 bunch of folks, because obviously the same answer isn't the same for the high school as it is.
Absolutely. That's when we broke up into 3 different groups, because what that looks like for an elementary school is a little different than it will be the high school. And they have teachers coming in from all those groups along with our principals, and obviously our curriculum team will be a part of that. But we're going to put our thinking hats on and get some guidance from TEA, and we're going to kind of check and see what some of the surrounding districts are doing. And Conroe's got a group together working too, and we're going to share with them, and they'll share with us, and we'll figure out what the next steps are. And we've just said is we just have to get something ready to get started and get it out there and get us in the habit of being disciplined enough as kiddos and parents to get kids started on sitting down and working on some things. And we'll work on the depth and quality of that as we move along, as we go into this further. So obviously with another 4 weeks down, I mean, there's a real reason for us to kind of get good at this. And so we're gonna,
Is it web-based?
Go at it.
Like web-based, do you think, or?
I think we're gonna use all options available. I mean, there could be some of it where we'll post up something on a website that parents could use as a guide if they can be actively involved with it. There may be some parts of it where actual teachers will be providing some maybe direct instruction with lessons, and the kids it would be online as a part of that. There could be we may even have to utilize pencil paper options we're pushing out for kids to be able to, we're gonna have to brainstorm how we don't know that we're in a scenario that we have 100% of our houses that kids are gonna have a computer and internet access right there to be able to play. So those are the conversations we've been having all day long, and we'll see if we can't figure out the best options to meet everybody's needs in between as we move forward with all that. But good question. I don't have the virus. I do have.
It's all the green pollen too,
I do
not
have
great
the
time.
pollen. What else can you all think of? Longest superintendent report on history.
Well, I appreciate your leadership, and I know you guys are working overtime. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a full-time job, just staying on top of all this. Trying to.
Well, we had our buildings all cleaned and disinfected from top to bottom, and we were ready to get, every bus had been disinfected. It was the cleanest the school district, I think, has ever been, trying to get ready to get started. So it was a little upsetting we didn't get a chance to come back and roll it, but we'll continue on trying to meet everybody's needs, whatever they may be in the upcoming week. So we'll keep you informed with all that. You'll get a chance to look and see what some of it looks like as we roll out, what some of that instruction is going to be. And like I said, we're not alone in this. We're districts all over the state of Texas. I read there was 780 of the districts of the 1,050 who have closed right now. And TA's keeping a register and count of all those. And I think the numbers keep going up in
So
terms
that
of those.
implies there's 200 and some odd that aren't.
Yeah, I think West Texas has been spared a lot of the numbers in terms of the actual cases up there, but the UIL shutdown cuts across the entire state, so they're all academic and art and everything, athletics are all shut down, UIL. So.
Just to echo what Travis said, there's a lot of parents that I've been hearing from that are really happy that you took such decisive action and quick, made it happen for the safety of the kids, so thank you for that.
Look, I just read an article today that said that virus can live 9 days on some surfaces, so.
Not if Tim and Meeks get to it.
So, I mean.
We've got hospital grade disinfectant and they've been.
We'll be well out of range of the 9 days by the time we bring
Yes,
kids
ma'am.
back, but I would be nervous if I were a district still functioning to try to get every nook and cranny.
Well, I was a little, I guess, skeptical about the curve, but I think the more I've listened in on some of the CDC and other calls, I mean, I think I've been won over to the board of we got to separate folks, and even though our kids may not be as affected by it in terms of the severity of the illness, they can still be carriers and they can still move around through the population and infect other people. And so if we can just practice this social distancing for a little longer, and as I said before, I mean, obviously CDC's told us 8 weeks is some of the things that we're looking at now. So we'll abide by that and hope that we're not only taking care of our kids, we're also taking care of the rest of the community by having our kids. Now, you know, what those kids do while they're not in the school building, well, that's a whole nother story, you know, and we're obviously gonna probably put some guidance out to parents about, so I know already the county is planning to make some plans about trying to prevent large gatherings of kids in other places, whether it be the mall or, you know, places they wanna get at somebody else's house or whatever, but somewhere that gets out of our purview. That's enough. I'm not we're gonna belabor y'all anymore.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're gonna move to our consent agenda, and this portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. So we've all seen a copy of this. Are there any questions about?
No questions. Comment, I like your letter, Dr. Stevens. Instead of just saying we can't really assess what happens, I like that each one of these has a actual response. Because some of it we do know now.
Well, I'm not doing a podcast or anything like that. I think Conroe's doing some kind of Facebook Live or something to everybody, so we just took the opportunity to write a letter, let everybody know. And we'll do our best. I think Denise has really completely reworked our website where it's all focused on news related to us being out or timeframes and what other type of instruction we're gonna push forward to, information that parents and kids need to know, or employees even.
Okay, so if there aren't any questions, further questions, we need a motion that the board approve consent agenda items A through I. Motion by Joe, seconded by Christie. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you. I think Dr. Hebert, are you next?
I think I need it. In your packet, you will see that we had provided, it is time for new adoption, English language arts materials at the high school level. And it's always quite a big undertaking because, as you can imagine, for an English teacher to start reading all the new materials that come with changing to a new English textbook is a lot. So it's a big decision of them, but also introducing new literature into our system. And so it's a decision that we never take lightly. So we have done our usual process with that and got teacher committees together to work really through which one is the best at this time that meets the needs of our community. And so they have chosen the selections that are listed there for you in your packet. Is Houghton Mifflin Harcourt is the publisher that also matches our K-8 adoption that we had last year, so it's a continual progression with that publisher. The other thing that I wanted to let you know that you'll see there's some other courses listed there called ELA and ELDA, which are acronym names, but they are new courses that the state has created at the secondary level. ELA is in junior high. It is a substitute course for newcomers in the students that are beginning or intermediate in their language acquisition of English, and they would take this course instead of the regular English course. So it's kind of a streamlined course that's really focused on language acquisition and getting English credit rather than all of those literary conventions and all of that stuff. It's not so much a focus there, but it would give those students the opportunity to focus on learning English in a class and not miss the opportunity to be in electives and all that kind of stuff to get a class like that, because that's where they get language acquisition as well. So that was good news. And then also ELDA is a course at the high school that's an English language development course that lets them work on reading and writing. They would take the regular English course and this one side by side. So it gives them double block English essentially in high school if they're still a language learner. So those are good news. So we picked selections for those as well. So I just kind of wanted to make you aware of those two courses, but it is a responsibility of the board to approve our adopted materials, and we have fulfilled all of the process, had public review open, and have made these selections and proud to present them based on recommendations of teachers tonight.
Any questions, anybody?
When these have been reviewed, there's a group of teachers that assess and review these, correct?
Thoroughly.
That's what I
Yes.
thought. But how big is that group I've
Well,
forgotten, we've
they're,
talked about it before, but,
They're listed here, that we had 4 from each high school.
okay.
That were the leaders. All teachers had the opportunity to review. These were the ones that waited out, did formal reviews, and made the final recommendation. But really, all the high school teachers had the opportunity to try lessons out in the different textbooks, dig through what they felt was right, and that's kind of just our normal process. We put it out there. They really get to explore the ones that they do. But we had 8 teachers then who were the final decision makers, along with Shay Garland, our ELA director.
And so the current teachers had a chance to try out some of the materials and the
Yes.
exercises, and they
Yes.
found them to work out.
As
Yeah.
well as they
Yeah.
can, knowing they're gonna get all the materials next year. That's
Right.
always a big shift for a teacher,
Right.
especially English, because there's so much reading involved with it.
Mhm.
But it's always easy for them to go with what's familiar.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, so as Dr. Hebert said, we need a motion to approve the 9 to 12 English language arts and reading and instructional materials as presented. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Joe. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you.
Before I see him back there, before we move forward, Jerry, stand up, please, sir. You guys just hired our new Director of Technology, Jerry Kruslowski, and he is coming to us from Montgomery ISD, where he has been that Director of Technology there for 9, yeah, I thought 10 was the number I was coming up with it, but experienced hand, and we're so happy to have him and his expertise, particularly right now with all the issues that we're faced with, and he's gonna be a welcome addition to the fold, helping us figure out how we're gonna push out some of these initiatives already. So, Terry Stone, welcome, and thank you for being here, man,
It's
tonight.
not exactly how I expected to transition in, but I'm glad I'm here. Everybody's been more than welcoming to me, and I look forward to being an asset to the team.
Man, happy to have you on
Thank
board.
you.
All right.
Well, welcome, and your timing couldn't be better. Okay, this shows Dr. Morris.
I think Dr. Bullock will take us
Well,
Bullock,
they're
sit
involved
for
on
him.
this. They are interchangeable.
I thought we had an identity thing going on.
But it's my turn.
They're gonna all pinch hit here.
We'll kind of work this out amongst ourselves, but we wanted to bring a proposal to you guys that, we're always looking for ways to provide a benefit to our employees, to make us more competitive as a school district, to attract the best teachers, the best employees in all jobs, to be the best we can for our kids. So, from salary, benefits, a bunch of other things. One of the topics that we have looked at and have done some rather extensive research on and are ready to bring before you tonight is the idea of extending daycare for our employees with young children. And we feel that with what we want to present you guys with tonight, it will give us an opportunity to do something that not a lot of school districts are doing, and do it in a way that I think would really make a difference for our employees who have young children, preschool age. So, again, we're always looking for ways to be at the front of this, and we have surveyed our employees. Ms. Myers is going to share with you some of that information, and Mr. Bruner will talk to you about a facility angle on this, and Dr. Morris will come in and talk to you about some of the finance behind it, and then we'll be available to answer questions you might have. So, Denise?
Thank you, Dr. Bullock. Good evening. So we sent a survey out February 20th, and we approximately have about 1,800 employees. And so from that, we got a 27% response rate. 480 people responded, and of those who responded, we have 136 people who have children. So from that, we asked them how many do they have, 1, 2, 3, 4 more, and you can see from the results, the majority have at least one child, within another 23% saying they have 2. The next thing that we ask them is age. Where do these children fall? You can see that the majority of them, over half, have an infant, and then the other half have toddlers. So from what I can tell from that, we have a lot of probably young teachers having babies. So when we looked at how many hours a week they would be using the child care service, almost 75% would look at having it full-time. But we do also have people that work part-time just a few days during the week, so that's where you get into 20 hours and then 8 to 12 hours. So the next question, what do you not like about your current daycare provider? The number one answer is cost. Cost kept coming up, and even if you start to drill down into some of the other things that they were adding to that, it really comes down to cost and to quality and hours. So if we ask them, would you consider using our facility as an option? And you can see that the majority of them said yes, with some of them saying maybe. And I would say they're saying maybe because, again, it's gonna go back to the cost and hours and location, because that was the other thing. Is it central? We talked about it being centrally located, so those are your three factors. I included just a couple of comments, and in your packet you can read all of the comments, but the majority of the comments are what you're seeing here. This would be wonderful. I would absolutely love this. This would be a great benefit. So there's a lot of excitement about it, and people are very anxious and ready to jump on board. Any questions?
So, I just wanted to talk to you tonight about some of the ideas we've been talking about as far as the location, size facility, what kind of budget we would look at. As you know, we currently have 2 daycare facilities for our transportation services. It's also opened up to our custodian. One on the east side at the transportation facility, one over here at the old Magnolia 6th grade, or I guess it's special services building now. So the first thing we talked about was being able, that we could expand some on the west side daycare facility that we currently have, because it's in that old classroom building. We could take up some more of the classrooms and have something that will be a little more convenient to folks that live on this side. But we've basically been talking about building a new building, centrally located, and we're looking at Magnolia Parkway campus as being, as an area where we have land available, and is obviously in a good location. We are, Dr. Stevens threw out an approximate $1 million budget to move forward with this. Obviously, we'll have some expenses, so we're looking at something in around 900, low 900s to build this facility. I feel like for that cost, we could probably do something around 6,500 square feet, possibly adding on some covered outdoor space that will be utilized, obviously, if kids want to get outside, it's raining or something like that, they'll have a place to go. We're looking at that. All this is very preliminary right now. But we do feel like we can do that. That puts us somewhere around $135, $140 a square feet. That's pretty cheap construction, but I think we can do it. I feel confident. We've been working with some contractors, looking at some numbers, looking at how we can make this happen. Timing-wise, if we are looking at, Dr. Stevens is really pushing, the possibility of having this for the new school year. So roughly August 15, that's going to be pretty tight. To do that, my recommendation is that we, kind of look at, something other than competitive seal proposal. It's a rather lengthy process. Job order contracting is something that we've used in the past. We most recently used it on the JROTC building at Magnolia High School very successfully. So that's something that we'll talk about, I think coming up later in the agenda. But that covers everything there. Is there any questions?
So if you got 6,500 square feet, roughly what's the capacity?
Okay, that's gonna give us about 5, and we've looked at some layouts. It gives us about 5 classrooms and a common area. Roughly, we could probably have put about 100 kids in there. That's ballpark right now. That's based upon the guidelines that, we've been
Depends on which age exactly all they fall. If it's heavier in the toddlers, it may be less. If there's more of the, I say the infants, but if there's the toddlers, you can get a few more in it, so. Seemed like we were in between 100 and 120 was the maximum where we were pushing that, which was very close to the number we had actually sort of indicating that, you know, could maybe start there.
And along with the possibility of opening up some additional space on the west side, existing daycare facility, obviously, you know, we could probably handle more than that.
So you could potentially do both. You could open space on the west side
I think we're moving in that direction.
in case you've got more than, because if we go back to, you said we have 1,800 employees. I'm just looking at the stats here. 1,800 employees, only 480 responded. And of those 480 respondents, 136 responses. So you may have more children out there that we need space for, but they just didn't respond, perhaps.
What, do we compare this to another district, maybe that's doing the same thing? And
Yeah,
the percentage of people that are taking advantage of it in a similar type district?
I know that Stephanie Saker and Ms. Beavis has been looking at some of the local, you know, Tomball's opened up a daycare facility, and they've looked at their numbers, and, you know, based upon what they're providing right now, you know, I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that we're looking to accommodate. It would be more than what they are, than what Tomball ISD is providing daycare service for. Now, there may be other factors involved that I can't really touch on. Yeah, it looks pretty good. 100 there, maybe another 20 or 30 kids over here, you know, I mean, I think that's very doable.
And that space is there. I mean, he just has to reclaim it from, I think food service is currently using that a little bit. We just
Some of
have
that
to,
for storage.
just have to move down a little bit and take some of those rooms and retask them, which is not real cost expensive. And then you could open up and you'd have a west side option and a central option. And for people that had to travel a long ways over there, it might be an option we do. And particularly if we ran out of space, we could still offer it at the west option here.
And so we'd be looking at teachers, substitutes? Are we looking at, I know sometimes it's hard for our schools to get a substitute teacher.
Could be something we could look at, you know, we might actually tier some of that down. And obviously the other group we were thinking about are our custodians, particularly our night custodians. We have a hard time attracting and keeping custodians, and one of the main reasons they tell us is childcare. And so we could almost envision this as being something that runs during the day for our teachers and make it available till, you know, 6 o'clock for teachers' kids, and then starting at that time, could transition, and, you know, custodians that were there working at night, we could have kids in there for them during the time that they're there available. And talking about it, that'd be something, you know, they would probably pick those kids up at all different times, you know, somebody who could able to get to them. But the purpose from either the teachers and the custodians and maybe even the subs is just to provide something that differentiates us, to say, these people want to be here and they want to be with us because we're taking care of them. And we've just noted that this year particularly, we've had so many teachers been out on maternity leave, and so many of them, as they get toward the end of that, they go through this, should I come back or should I stay at home? And this would give them some option to say, hey, don't have the child care. Part of this is going to be much cheaper option, and it's right here, you know, close to your work. So I just think it'd be a good benefit that we don't currently have now in our portfolio.
And we currently offer this to our bus drivers.
For, bus drivers.
And the bus,
custodians.
the transportation facilities would stay operational.
Well, the East Side Transportation daycare facility it is what it is. It's fairly limited. There's really not room to expand, so we haven't looked at that option.
Yes, but we wouldn't shut we'd still be, we'd
They would
basically
still
go to
operate.
operating a transportation custodial one, and then one for teachers and potentially substitutes and paras, and then night custodians on top of that. So we're just expanding. We're not closing any of them down.
Okay.
I just can't get past I feel like 100 kids is not enough. Maybe that's just me on the table, but
That was the
I feel like,
public, was big with the
I feel like
numbers.
100 kids is, we're gonna blow by that. And
Well,
we might have
certainly-
new problems,
We're
you know?
certainly designing this to expand.
Okay.
And that's the first thing we looked at. I sat down with Phil Roder with PDK and said, whatever we do, because we're just gonna do a metal building concept, similar to Alpha Academy, and design it where, you know, the corridor ends where it can pick up and continue on down. We can add bays on as this thing
Oh,
goes
great,
on.
okay.
Yeah, sure.
And we have the space to keep adding on.
We do have the space. Great questions, but yeah, we've looked at that. We're gonna kind of started on the left edge and anticipating moving all the way over. It'll be just on the south side of the main parking lot, the staff parking lot, if you will, of Magnolia Parkway Elementary.
All the utilities and everything already exist back there, so it's a lot cleaner to get started on the operational side of it for that location.
And we had a portable building there at one time that was utilized by the YMCA a few years ago, so we had to take them utilities back then. We'll be able to utilize that, keep costs down.
And we actually added a bay on to Alpha, and we continue to keep motion instruction going there at the time. So if we ever decided we need to add a bay on, we could do most of that construction and not interfere with the operations of the daycare going on. And so it'd be really easy to add a bay on. I say really easy, I mean, it's a,
Well,
They're
what I
designed to
really
do
have
that.
to do is to have a bay, an open bay on the end of this. In the event that we needed to add on quickly, we could just close it in. So if we're able to pull that off financially, that'll get us one step closer to being able to expand.
On the west side, how many classrooms do you think you could renovate? Because I know we have some sitting there idle.
3.
3, okay.
Right now, we're looking at 3 before we sort of start to impact people that are occupying that
Right.
space.
But we have 3 that are
3
currently
that are
idle.
readily available to move into.
Okay,
I say that, we have
Yeah.
to move.
right.
Food
But you
services, they're storing a few items in one of those rooms, but, you know.
But you could work your magic.
Yeah,
in those 3
there are other
rooms.
places
Yeah.
that we could utilize for storage, so, yeah, 3 rooms.
My gut feeling is that when people start to realize I probably should have filled out that survey, and yes, I want to be a part of that, we will blow by that number pretty
Yeah,
fast.
it could grow quickly.
good problem.
Well, I guess, that's a good call, but do you feel like from the survey, it's not gonna be inconveniently located for everybody, I hope? I mean, obviously, we wanna fill this thing up, and I'm just worried that, you know, Nicholas Sawmill is not gonna trudge all the way to Parkway to drop off and then go back. BB6 is not gonna do the same, it's essentially, but we're spread out. That's
They
the
might
issue.
if the price is right, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Because
don't know
gotta
where they're
consider
driving from.
Where are they going now? And how
That's right.
far are they having to drive to go?
That's right.
And then the figures we came up with of what they're paying, some of them as much as 1,200 or something a month. I mean, this is a substantial
Incentive to go use it.
incentive to make that
Yeah.
little bit of a drive over there. And particularly if we offer a west side, if you didn't want to go over here, I mean, all the way to Parkway, take that off the plate, it really, in terms of you having to drive, it's, I think people will, really do.
If you're a new parent, what a fabulous benefit. I mean, that, you know, all the big law firms downtown do that. You know, and they know, because they're gonna lose that expertise, and they don't want to. They want that, when that lady goes out on maternity, they want her to come back. And that same thing we have with the teachers. I mean, why, you know, we need their expertise, we need the good ones.
Well, I mean, I won't still.
Well, I never questioned the if, I'm questioning the where.
Where.
So is it,
Yeah.
can we
Well, that's-
get these guys in there, you know?
That's the reason we put the event center right where we put it, because it was for both sides of the district, and it's been great from everything we hear.
And now that 1488 is opened up, and maybe that overpass will stop the road closures there as often. I mean, it's about as accessible in terms of, you know, the roads to be able to get to that
And
point.
easy in and easy out, you don't
And
have to drive
dropping kids
in.
off, I mean, they're gonna be there fairly early anyway. They'll sort of miss the elementary, as long as our times are somewhat what they are now. And so it'll be easy in and those kids off, so.
I think it's
Anything
great.
else?
Did y'all plan those outfits before you came?
Please don't stand
We
together
told each
for
other this morning that we were not going to be in the same room together. I really expected to go home at one point today and put on a long sleeve shirt.
It's duty and double duty.
He said y'all were entertained.
Facilities and finance are so interwoven, I guess. Okay, so how are we gonna pay for this?
Yes.
The good news is you all should be aware that we're in a really good financial position to be able to utilize some fund balance, if you will. The chart in front of you kind of shows the district strength, and I know you may recall this from the board goals from a few months ago, but it shows that we are more financially secure than we ever have been, and you know, I guess the better news to that is that utilizing $1 million roughly in fund balance as a whole is what we can do in this case, but we're not actually going to have to touch the general fund balance, because if you recall, it's kind of become our practice the last however many years, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the accounting, but I want to paint a little picture here. At the end of the fiscal year, we usually have a gross surplus in general fund. And of that gross surplus, we shift a portion over to our construction fund for capital asset needs and buses and things of that nature. Well, this past year, we shifted $4 million over to that fund, okay? And whereas we've allocated a substantial portion of that for new buses and things of that nature, there is a piece remaining that is unallocated at this point. So that's what we would be using to fund this. And so I guess what I'm saying is that it is ultimately using district fund balance as a whole, but it doesn't negatively impact our general fund balance. So as we look at financial strength of the district and things of that nature, this is the primary thing that bond rating agencies will look at. So we have the money available. I think, I mean, I can't imagine a better use of any fund balance for something that's going to give us the sort of return that we're going to get on this. So I know we hit on it briefly, but operational cost, yes, we will have payroll costs associated with it. We'll certainly have utility costs for building purposes, but we believe with a likely participation at a very discounted rate that it'll be very minimal. And of course, we could always adjust it if we needed to and felt like we had to, but it's obviously not our goal to make money. It's to provide a good service. So we believe that we can manage all of that operationally, but I guess the main thing for tonight is the use of a district-wide fund balance, which again, I think is a perfect use for that. Any questions on that? Did I get too accounting focused?
Very well done.
So is the intent to fill it up and charge just enough to pay for the
I think
ongoing
it is, and I hate
OpEx?
to throw a number out. I know we've looked at something as low as $100 to $150 a month, correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't want to box ourselves in, but if you look at what parents are paying now and the likely participation associated with that based on the relatively minimal amount of costs that we really see operationally speaking, I think it will come close to balancing. And if it ends up costing the district a little bit of money, when you compare it to what it costs to add $50 a month for health insurance purposes or another 1% raise and things of that nature, which, you know, I mean, it is very cost efficient, I believe, operationally speaking.
And I would think the recruiting and training new teachers, of not having to lose teachers that have a child or two children, and then once they have
Right,
two or
those
three
operational
children,
costs as well,
it
absolutely.
doesn't perhaps may not make sense to continue to work.
100%. Now, we know the costs are astronomical. I mean, I've had infants the last several years myself, so. But you know, unfortunately, they're a little too old for this now, but I believe it's and again, from the CFO perspective, I think it's a perfect use of our reserves. So. And I think that wraps up the daycare presentation. So if y'all have any more questions, please fire away.
No more interchangeable people, we can talk about this later.
No more interchangeable.
Okay,
You know,
anybody?
not that it would necessarily completely equate to this, but it's around 900,000 or 800,000 for a percent
For every 1%
raise,
raise, about 800K.
which obviously has an impact on our teachers and attracting and retaining teachers. But at some point, you know, that loses, I mean, we think back to the point where we've done that, and so we add another one on, and the concern this year is how far are other districts going? I know there's a couple of them already stepped out there and said that some of the raises are gonna be sort of minimal this coming year, based upon what the finance system is gonna be generating. But here's a use of $1 million that we have that will continue to pay us dividends, year after year after year, to help it, attract and retain teachers. Sometimes maybe after that percent raise kinda is maybe sort of faded out of memory or somewhat, or been washed in. This was something that just continues to stay relevant for those
There's
teachers,
not a
because
lot
it
of
still
districts that
affects
offer
the, that amount in their paycheck of the ones that are involved with it. And is there obviously some negative side that some people say, well, it's not for us, but well, yeah, maybe you've timed out and your kids aren't available, but it is available for our people, and it helps us attract and retain those that have that age kiddos, and so.
Well, and those young teachers that are just starting, seems to me they're the ones that probably need that help the most. Just getting their family started, they're not earning that much, they're wanting to be teachers. Those are the folks we want to attract. And hopefully they stay forever. So I think what we could gain intellectual capital, it far exceeds what our cost would be.
Joe, and you hit it on, that is the new game. We are competing for the best and brightest. I mean, we're obviously in a market already where our salaries are relatively close between, the top tier districts in the Houston area, the top tier districts in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, and those in the Central Texas area. We got to differentiate ourselves some way, and this would be clearly something a little different to help attract some of those young ones coming out. And we got to get them in the pipeline too. But if those that are coming out, we want to be right there in line for the best of them to compete for them, because it is all about getting the best people in front of our kids.
Absolutely.
And what a great problem if we fill this thing up and we feel like it's that we come back and we're doing it again. We look at either another site for it, another use for that. We did a little bit of just looking at what rental property looks like out there, and I mean, this is clearly the best option because we've got the land and ability to put it on the ground. So we just could replicate that, either enlarge that one or whatever. Let's just see if we can get good at it, and if it attracts people, then we've won on that game.
Yeah, because if we have to grow it, then obviously it's working.
Obviously, it's.
Then you
That's a success meter. I
You
would think.
track the best and brightest,
That's right.
And it's $1 million to build it, and what's the lifespan of a building like that?
Oh, I mean, it would 30 years. I think it would have a 35 to 40-year lifespan.
So it's $1 million, one time to build it, but we have 35 years of use?
Long past my retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know you were that far down the road too, but how long have we been in Alpha? There's an example.
Alpha was built in, 2002? So
So
18 years, and there's nothing wrong with that.
not a bit, and it's been touched up, spruced up, and with it, and one of these days, I promise you, we're gonna go and see the new addition to that. And it's, what we're talking about is a little bit smaller than what that addition was that he put on that bay. And, but sort of what I've been using as a gauge to figure out how much space we'd have available for it, so.
And the utilities are there, the property, we own the property, so there's no additional that you're
Yeah.
seeing.
The minimal civil work, that's really what's driving the cost down.
Right.
This is, what we're looking at is a very inexpensive cost these days. Now, I will say that, these are extraordinary times, obviously, so that I'm hoping that the speed bumps are minimal moving forward, but, suddenly the industry is getting a little rocked by what's going on with the economy, so.
Price of steel, price of concrete.
Yeah, I can't really say exactly what's gonna happen there, but, we're planning to move quickly on this thing and get this price nailed down as soon as possible, and, all those things are helping to keep the cost down. The fact that it's in pretty much an already developed area, property, so.
Proximity to the school allows us to feed those kids there. We got the kitchen, so he doesn't have to worry about any type of kitchen space or anything, so that holds our cost down on a facility like this. He really just has a serving area, because we'll just be bringing food in.
And would that be the same if you renovated those 3 classrooms on the west side?
Well,
This cafeteria?
They already provide, so we
That's
have,
what I thought.
we have a kitchen that's open there.
Right, okay.
So.
For those
yeah,
kids.
The food will be brought in and served right there in those classroom
Okay.
areas.
I think in these times, these extraordinary
Yes.
times, if you can make, if you can tell your people that their kids are gonna be in a safe place, close by, and take that, alleviate the stress of how to pay for it, I can't even think of a better thing.
Well, we'll put this under the wing of Stephanie Saker and the daycare things that she already does, and we'll probably hire a teacher to sort of be director of the facility, and for that reason, I think it will maybe put teachers that feel like, well, we have somebody who has teaching credentials, they're part of it, and that will be served that part of the, day is gonna be reserved for some learning time for those kids, and we have a teacher that's driving that, part of that instruction and part of it, so. That's kind of the staffing plans of what that's gonna look like, and the teacher will be able to help us somehow across even the other daycares that we have. And I think Stephanie does a great job with those, but we bring a teacher into the fold there, it would just, because there was some of the comments, if you look at, we saw, because we were concerned that we had some type of learning availability for the kids there that might look similar to what we have in the pre-K. And by the time they get to pre-K, 4-year-olds, we have an employee program currently in our building for those kids. So this would be the train, take you up to that point, up to 3 years old.
Dr. Morris, our bond rating would still be superior?
Yes, ma'am. Nothing will change. And like I said, that's one of the good pieces about how we kind of account for our dollars at the end of the year, where it doesn't negatively impact our actual general fund balance, doesn't negatively impact our debt service fund balance, and so there's no change from that perspective.
Okay. Any more questions? We good? All right, then we need a motion to approve, right?
I don't remember.
9C.
9C, the next one. Sorry, I'll do a short presentation on that.
Excuse me, yes, that's the method.
Oh, well, I'll just give you a quick background on that one. I'm sorry, I was anticipating moving to that. It's just like Mr. Bruner mentioned earlier, the job order contract appears to be the best approach for this building, made possible given the prefab nature of the facility, the relatively small building itself, the time sensitivity, and the fact that we're able to use the BNC constructors who we've used for many, many projects in the past, and it's already been procured, if you will, through one of our purchasing co-ops. So we believe it to be the best approach. We know what we're getting into financially, and so we believe that it's the best delivery method for this facility.
So as we move down the road, Mr. Brenner will be working with, provided he will bring us back at some kind of a guaranteed maximum cost for the project that we will have to approve at that point. But this just allows him to move forward with working with one particular vendor in this case.
Moving forward for procurement purposes, yes, sir.
And we hope to have a good price on that, Tim.
So I'm hearing you say that we're gonna build a similar building to something we've already built, and we're gonna use the contractor who was awarded that RFP.
So yes, ma'am, we know. What
Okay.
we're getting into. Yes, ma'am.
Plus, they've done a lot of work for us all over the place.
Well, they built it for us before, and they were
They know what they're getting into.
they were the correct contractor then.
They know their customer.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we need a motion to approve BNC Constructors LP for construction of the MISD daycare facility as presented. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Christie. All in favor? The motion passes. I'll tell you what, paychecks are important, but, super important, but the more ideas we can have like this to make everybody wanna come work here, the better.
Well, you guys get us started.
There's just nothing-
We'll start ginning them up and bring them to you guys, and we're gonna.
Take a step back, the benefit package is pretty impressive,
Yeah.
what we've done for
Yeah.
our transportation folks, and
Right.
we have the pre-K for our employees, and increased our health insurance contribution last year as well, so.
You can't say enough good things about this.
It has
sort of
become
thing.
an arms race to find talent and put them in the mix, and this will be one thing in our tool belt, we'll be able to get them here.
That's right.
All right, fantastic.
Okay, next, sort of an interesting or different kind of consideration. We're approached recently by KB Home Lone Star Incorporated, I think one of their representatives here tonight, about the development that's over near Magnolia West High School. And at that, they approached us about the need for an emergency easement access or the need for another entrance for emergency vehicle purposes, okay? And so we discussed with them, went to our lawyers, created a contract that was favorable for us for an emergency easement access for emergency vehicle purposes on the back of our property at Magnolia West, and I'll show you a picture in just a moment. For a nominal fee of $3,500, which the district and our local emergency vehicle folks will be the only ones who can control entrance and exit purposes. But here's kind of what it looks like, and Tim, if you have anything to add, please do. But towards the back of the Magnolia West property, you'll see where the easement is or would be, and where the gate will be created, if you will. We do anticipate in time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mustang Ridge, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but my understanding is with the loop that will be coming north of that in the future years, that there will likely be an entrance there at that point as well. So the new entrance that we're allowing will probably be void at that time. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay. So anyhow, like I said, we believe we've created a contract that will be helpful to our local developer, but we will maintain control for entrance and exit purposes for the nominal fee of $3,500. So we are recommending approval of the emergency easement access.
From the picture, this looks like we're kind of landlocked. There's not a whole lot of options, right?
Yeah, this was actually required by the city.
Yeah, it was a city requirement for
From
an
permit-
additional entrance for permit purposes.
For permitting purposes, they required the developer to have a second access
Right.
in the event that the entrance off of 1774 was blocked for whatever reason.
Right.
Renaissance traffic.
So they,
I don't know if that ever
Looking at
came
this
up or
map,
not.
Renaissance
Yeah.
easement.
You have to do it. I mean, there's no other option.
At least
We
until,
feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
at least until that loop comes in, this is pretty much their only option right now, so.
And it's only for emergency purposes.
There are what they call Knox boxes that are on there that firefighters and law enforcement have a key to, and so if an emergency vehicle has to come through there, they can get out, unlock those gates, but other than that, it's closed, you know. It's not general through traffic. But again, as Tim said, they were required to have this in their design to move forward, so we've been trying to accommodate them as quickly as possible.
Other questions?
And we can get Charlie to build the relief route around the backside of that, through here, through the middle of the Montgomery County, of the Lone Star College property over there. Then maybe they can have another way to get in and out of there, but he can get work on that road work over there for us.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve the emergency access easement agreement with KB Home Lone Star, Inc. Motion by Christie, seconded by Kelly. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for putting up with us.
Okay, Mr. Bell, you're on deck, sir.
Good evening, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. If you look at your packet there, I'm going to talk to you now about teacher recruitment program. Early in the year, this evening, you heard Dr. Stevens talk about coronavirus and completing the 1920 school year. Well, besides completing 1920, we're also focusing on next year on 2021 as far as teacher recruitment goes. And I'll say this on a side note, the daycare facility for employees, outstanding idea. I'm glad you did that. My oldest son, he'll have his 5th child in 1 week, all under 10. So I'm well aware of the cost associated with daycare facilities. And so that's a great benefit for both our recruiting and for our current staff. So if you look there at your packet, really in the background summary, it talks briefly about what we're facing right now. But in that second line there, as an employment market for teachers becomes more competitive, school districts around the state are approving and implementing strategies and incentives to attract teachers to their district. So tonight I'm gonna talk to you about a three-pronged teacher recruitment program approach to try to get the best teachers around the state to come to Magnolia ISD. And the daycare facility is just one benefit that will help do that. Okay, so your first thing you see there is early resignation incentive program. So many times people know they're gonna retire, they know they're gonna resign for various reasons, moving on or whatever the situation may be. And they don't know the importance of submitting their resignation to us early on. So they may sit there inadvertently go through the school year into May, into June, and decide, oh yeah, I need to submit my resignation. In the meantime, we don't have a vacancy, we can't go out and recruit people. So the longer they sit on those resignations, the further into the summer we go, trying to hire the best people. And the further you go into the summer, the harder it is to get those good people from other places. So there in this program, what this is, it's gonna have to be tweaked now because we're not in school, won't be back in school till April 10th. But with that said, the intent is still the same. And you'll see that early resignation incentive program is for full-time, campus-related professional contract employees who have been faithful in attendance. And you see there, they must submit their resignation to HR department by Tuesday, March 31st, at the end of the day. 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, if you want to resign and be qualified for this program, you need to submit your resignation. A couple things happen then. Now, the original intent was then, once you submit your resignation, we want you here the rest of the year, finish out your contract, can't miss more than 2 days, then we can move forward as well with your vacancy and filling your vacancy, and or making plans for next year. And that next third bullet from the bottom says there, submit it to me, and once it's submitted to me, now, if they never come back, let's just say that scenario's there, they still qualify. And you see there that first bullet, we'll pay you up to 10 of your local accumulated days at $90 per day. So possibility of $900 at the end, in your last paycheck, if you submit your resignation by March 31st of this year, for next year. Then if we come back, let's say on the 10th of April, then on April 13th, the same scenario would apply, meaning you can't miss more than 2 days the rest of the school year. We want you in the classroom, educating our kids the rest of the school year. It helps on sub-cost as well, and then helps us go out and recruit teachers early on. And this whole plan is tied together into the next item, which will be the early signing bonus, but I'll get to that here in just a second. So the way it will go is I will get with Denise tomorrow, and then we'll figure out how to shoot this out by email to the staff who may be interested in resigning. And we've already had several, 25 already submit resignations for next year, which is fine. They know they're gonna retire or move on. They've already submitted that. They would qualify into this as long as they satisfy the guidelines. Okay? They would fill out the bottom part, submit it to me with their resignation, and we move forward from that. I've done this in the past, and it works to a great extent with people that already know they're going to resign for whatever reason. Well, now they can get up to $900 just for submitting it anyway when they were going to do that. But if we're back in school, it keeps them in the classroom, cuts on sub-costs, our kids get the teacher there, and then we get the early chance to go out and recruit the best people possible. So they would submit that form to us. The next page is the resignation resolution. And basically, I'll summarize it for you in the whereas section of both of those in that second paragraph. In the best interest of the Magnolia ISD and for appropriate public purposes, the Board of Trustees should reasonably attempt to obtain an accurate forecast prior to the end of the current 1920 school year for those employees who do not intend to return to employment for the 2021 school year. And such forecast will enable the school district to better address hiring needs in the increasingly competitive market. So once we get the resignation, we sit down with the principals and HR. Do you still need that English teacher? No, I'm going to shift it to math. Okay, shift it to math, and we go out and hire the math teacher. So it gives us an early on chance to make those adjustments to go out and recruit the people. Next paragraph, obtaining such a forecast in the best interest of the district and allows the district to further its educational mission by properly assessing its personnel needs for the 2020-2021 school year. And such a forecast will increase the quantity and quality of educators to fill those vacancies for the next year. So that's the gist of it. If you know you're going to resign, we're going to give you a little incentive to submit it early and then finish out the school year with us. Okay, so that ties into the next part, which is the early signing. Okay, so it's hard to fill positions when people don't resign. So we want you to resign sooner. If you can and you know, then we can get out there and get the best people. So now we're going to have an early signing incentive, which says, you see 3 categories there. Category 1 is Texas Certified Teachers. Category 2 is Texas Certified Special Education Teachers, as well as DIAGs, LSSPs, and support staff. And then category number 3 is Texas Bilingual Certified Teachers. So what we're saying here, and they all have the same preface underneath that title, is that if you sign a contract or you're recommended to hire by May 22nd, so May 22nd is the last day of school here for us. So what we're saying is if you're recommended for hire and sign a contract with us, then you see the incentives there. If you got 0 to 3 years of continuous classroom experience, you get a $600 in your first paycheck. 4 to 7 years, $800, and 8+ years of service, you get $1,000. If you're in category 2, SPED related, you see if you're a SPED teacher, $1,200, and the associated positions with SPED, $1,500, and then in category 3, bilingual certified teachers, you get $1,300 if you're recommended for hire and sign with us by May 22nd. So let's go back to the big picture, is that if you know you're going to resign, submit it sooner than later. Gives us a chance to make our employment plans for next year, shift and move. Now we can go out early on and hire good people and even offer them a little incentive to sign with us early, before the end of their school year as well. And then that ties into the third part of the program, which is the bilingual part, which is that third bullet. So in that part of it, we're talking about strictly bilingual certified teachers. So SPED teachers, bilingual certified teachers, they're hard to come by. Particularly bilingual certified teachers are hard to find, they're hard to keep, and so that's why this is directly related and targeted to them. So that first bullet talks about a signing incentive. So this is not early signing, this is anybody after May 22nd. You get $1,000 incentive in your first paycheck if you're bilingual certified or bilingual endorsement. We're going to increase the stipend for all bilingual classroom teachers from $4,000 to $4,500. And then the third one talks about that early signing bonus, what I discussed earlier, if you sign before May 22nd. So it's a 3-pronged recruitment program. In addition, it makes our job easier when we have the daycare we can throw out there as well. But then we look at all these. If you resign before a certain date, this happens. If you sign with us by a certain date, this happens. Or if you're in one of those hard-to-fill areas, this happens. So right now is a great time. So we had intended to go to 7 to 8 job fairs starting this Friday, and it appears that all 7 to 8 have been canceled. So that was going to be one of our ways. We would have signs there and handouts to give all these different groups of people to let them know what we do. So we'll have to find another way to get that word out there since the job fairs are mostly being canceled. But it's a 3-pronged approach. Each year it seems to be getting more and more difficult to recruit certain certified teachers, particularly bilingual, SPED, and some other ones. And we're not the only district. Many districts around the state are targeting, coming up with incentive programs, whether it's signing bonuses, retention bonuses, increased stipends in those areas to be competitive. And this is our approach, 3-pronged approach to continue to be competitive and be the best school district in the state of Texas. Questions? We'll see how it works. If it doesn't work great, then I'll be back next year with some changes, mods, increases, whatever it might be.
Well, we're gonna really brag on Mr. Bell for his work on this, and these are some things in his prior life as a superintendent. He's enacted as in other districts, and we've talked about it and about the potential of it, and we feel like it was a time in our push and our effort to attract the best and brightest. And he said, well, I've got some ideas here that, you know, what we've used before, and so we gave him the reins to move ahead and get this pulled together, and so I think a great opportunity. And too often, as he pointed to, we have people who tell their principal they're gonna retire, and they just hold on to that retirement letter, and we run to the end of the year and hand that over, and those principals were sort of hamstrung to actually, we may can ask some people and get them lined up, but we can't hand them a contract, and that sometimes causes people to be a little shy about accepting, because well, we haven't really got that resignation. We can't quite take you to the board, and I'm unwilling to hand people contracts till I really get a resignation back from some people. So this will, and those same people, some of our best, I mean, they have a tendency to want to burn. They've saved up a lot of days, and they think they have an entitlement. So that part of this is that they have to come and be here that last year. to get that. And so this gives them some incentive to be able to do that. And I think it's a great idea, and I know other districts have done it, but I appreciate Sam guiding us through putting all this together.
So if we try to recruit somebody else with this incentive, and you're trying to get them to sign by May 22nd or whatever, do they have to then have given their notice in order to be able to accept this?
No, it's a reverse. You usually sign with the district before you go resign.
Right.
So they'll sign a contract with us and they go and resign their current job.
Okay, all right. I didn't know the legality of it, if they had to be separated. I know, obviously you wanna have something in hand before you leave, right?
They want to have another contract in hand before they go back and resign.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you notice the wording on that, the wording said recommended for hire, because if they recommend the person for hire May 21st, it may take us 2 to 3 days to get criminal background checks and all that information done, and they won't have the contract signed by May 22nd. So that's why it says recommended for hire, and then it says and sign a contract. So if you've been recommended for hire before that date, and you check out, we're good, and you sign a contract, you're good, then you'll get that money on the first paycheck.
And our bilingual teachers are almost non-existent, so we might as well up the ante to get,
Absolutely.
take care of the ones that we have here and,
Yeah, you got
maybe
certain
help us.
dates and certain bonuses for all the way down for these guys.
Yeah. we're-
Well, it's in here, is in a lot of districts, I'm trying to stop the ship and turn it. We tend to sign most of our people in July, and then June, and then May we'll work our way back. We need to flip that the other way around. We need to try to sign as many as we can before the end of school, and then into June, and maybe into July. But before we can sign, we gotta have resignation, we gotta have people to fill the vacancies. So I'm trying to turn it to do most of our hiring of our better staff.
Cause the
for
season
school
keeps you
resources.
scrambling otherwise, yeah.
Excuse me?
I said because the season keeps you scrambling otherwise.
Nonstop.
Again, we've run this by Dr. Morris, and it's, really, it's kind of
For
negligible.
relatively minimal cost, we can accomplish most of that without adjusting the budget in current year, and minimal effect for next year as well. So, for what we get, it's a really low cost.
In addition to the daycare, pretty good, a lot of good stuff going on.
And to an extent with the bilingual, I don't think we really have a choice in order to attract them.
Do you feel like this will help you attract, this will help you attract with the daycare, young new teachers?
Hope so. Yeah, we'll see. I can speak for my older son, it's $800 to $1,200 a month. You got an infant, it's $1,200 plus a month. So it's a great idea. With this right here, I'm hoping we can go out there early on and get the principals out there and get some good people in.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve the teacher recruitment programs and resolution as presented. Motion by Travis, seconded by Joe. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you, sir. That sounds great. That sounds awesome. All right, what else we got, Chief?
Well, I hope we've struck a blow for quality teachers in this district tonight. We can move forward with some of these things, put them on the shelf. It's gonna help us out long-term, attracting people. And I've been introduced to him, but I cannot remember a name, so forgive me, but tell us your name. He's with a new reporter with the Community Impact News. Dylan? Yeah, I met Dylan at the chamber meeting the other day, but this will be his first assignment this week. So you got some good news to report there, Dylan. So get with Ms. Myers and she'll help you fill in the chinks. There was a lot of good story there, talking about how we're helping out our teachers. Welcome, though. I guess that's all that I legally can ask you guys to do.
Okay, so now the board will now recess and move into closed executive session for purposes permitted by pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, discussion of purchase, sale, exchange, or value of real property, and pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel discussion and recommendations. Thank you very much. Okay, we need a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Sonia. All in favor? That motion passes. Meeting adjourned. It's 8:50 PM.